Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Rafae Iqbal, and today we'll be talking about Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, who has been sworn in as the 24th elected Prime Minister of the country. We'll talk about the 16th National Assembly that is in place now. Sardar Sadiq has been elected as the Speaker of the National Assembly. Ghulam Mustafa Shah has been elected as the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, and this comes as these were the nominees for the coalition partners. And the Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif himself was the nominee of PMLN and supported by the coalition partners. Shahbaz Sharif has now become the 24th elected Prime Minister of the country, as earlier there was elections held in the National Assembly regarding the elections for the post of Prime Minister. If we talk about these elections, Shahbaz Sharif secured 201 votes, whereas the other contesting candidate, Umar Ayub, backed by the Sunni Ittihad Council, secured 92 votes. And as Shahbaz Sharif was sworn in, as he was elected the Prime Minister yesterday, and today he has been sworn in, he took the oath from the President, Arif Alvi. And of course, after that, the developments as the caretaker Prime Minister Anwarullah Kakar was bid farewell at the Prime Minister's house. Those were also very sentimental moments as Shahbaz Sharif shook hands with him and bid him farewell. And he also met with the staff of the Prime Minister's house before he left. Then came the Guard of Honor, which was presented to the newly elected Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif by the armed forces. And he also met the staff of the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister's house. And also we'll be discussing his maiden speech in the National Assembly and the policy vision that he presented before the lower house of Parliament. And of course, this will be our first segment. In our next segment, we'll be discussing the incident that we witnessed in India happening, the gang rape of a woman who is a vlogger, and she was accompanied by her partner. It was a very devastating incident and has taken the internet by storm. There's a lot of criticism coming in, and there's a lot of opinions that we're hearing. We'll also talk about that. But before that, we'll move to our first segment in the studios. We'll like analysis from our esteemed panel of analysts. We have senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi in the studios with us. Along with that, we have geopolitical analyst Raja Faisal with us. And on Skype, we'll be joined by Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who is a senior analyst, and Dr. Zubair Ghauri, who is a political analyst. And I'd like to move towards Dr. Zubair Ghauri first to start our conversation. Considering the 16th National Assembly is in place now, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has been sworn in, and we see that in his maiden speech he talked about a lot of reforms, a lot of revolutionary steps that he's going to be taken. But the main question that we see at the moment that the 3 times former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif won't be an active part of the government. What proportions do you see regarding this factor, and considering how the formation of the cabinet will take place?
Dr. Zubair?
Dr. Ghauri.
Dr. Zubair Ghauri, are we audible to you? Well, we'll try to reconnect with him and try to resolve the audio issue. But before that, we'll move towards Dr. Niaz Murtaza with the same question. How do you see the cabinet being formed, as it will be Shahbaz Sharif who will be taking the reins this time?
Well, it's good that, finally the new setup is in place. We have the 4 provinces and the Prime Minister all sworn in. And now, obviously, the next challenge is, how they are going to govern. And in that sense, the surprising thing is that, none of the provinces have, announced their cabinets, even though they have been in place for, 3 or 4 days at least. And obviously, there's no bar that, you can't announce your cabinets even before that. So obviously, the different parties had 3 or 4 weeks after the elections to sort this out. And, given the large amount of problems that we have on the economy, on security, on, foreign policy, it would have been good if all of them had hit the ground running in terms of at least having, the top 4, 5, 6 positions taking oath together with the chief executive of each setup. But that hasn't happened so far. So I hope they can quickly, announce their main teams in the next 1 or 2 days, so that the job of starting with governance can start as soon as possible. And obviously, the key positions at the center will be finance, the most watched a position after the prime minister is going to be the finance minister, given all the problems that we are facing on the economy. So it will be very interesting to see how who they bring in. I think it would be good if they break with tradition and try to bring in somebody new, who has a good grip on macroeconomic stability, fiscal policy, and has good international as well as national experience, who has dealt with IMF programs well, who's been able to rein in galloping fiscal deficits, current account deficits, because there's just so many problems. So the person that is chosen will tell you a lot about what kind of reforms will be possible, because there's a very simple relationship. The kind of the quality of outcomes that a regime achieves depends on the quality of its strategies, and the quality of its strategies depends on the quality of its team. So just by looking at the team within the first 1 or 2 weeks, you can say with a reasonable degree of predictability at how this regime is going to do. And this is what I had done with PTI when it unveiled its team. I felt that it was a very weak team and it would not be able to deliver on all the promises that it had made, and this is what happened. So it would be interesting, as the team get resolved, the finance, and then other economy ministries like investment, industries, commerce, IT, planning. These are all key, because the finance minister just gives you macroeconomic stability. The creative kind of out of the box solutions that we need to enhance our investments, exports, industrial growth, you need people with solid industrial experiences who can come up with new ideas and infuse some life in these ministries, which are normally seen as just dead weight. All the parties just appoint people with good connections, they're loyals. So if uh, PMLN is really serious about the promises that Shahbaz Sharif made in his speech, then the kind of team that they unveil will tell you very quickly whether those promises are going to be met or not.
Right, we've been joined by Dr. Zubair Ghauri on telephone as well, and I'd like to ask him what he thinks about the government formation and how the cabinet will form, as we know that considering the economic crisis that the country has been facing and the challenges that prevail. Ishaq Dar, he's coming out as the most probable nominee for this slot as a finance minister again, or will come up, as we know that he had been earlier serving in the PMLN's governments as well. How important do you think is going to be whoever holds the portfolio as finance minister this time, and of course the other ministries that follow that are going to be crucial?
Well, thank you very much. I hope you are able to hear me this time. Can you confirm that you are hearing me?
Yes, you're clearly audible.
Okay. So, first of all, this is not a kind of a game that is going on, that who is going to be the finance minister or not. Whosoever is coming up, whether it's Ishaq Dar Sahab is coming or somebody else, it's going to be a Herculean task, as everybody agrees. But I don't say that we are in a crisis-like situation, but yes, the challenges are huge. The second thing that I want to focus on is about the team. I think it's not the team of the ministers that is important here. It's the team of the bureaucrats or the team of the workers on ground at federal and both at the provincial level, particularly the Punjab government, because that has to work a lot towards the development of the program and then achievements of the successes that we have been all talking about. If you recall the 10 years tenure of Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, and he was the CM at that time, it wasn't dependent on the provincial ministers which were taken from the provincial assembly, but actually the team of the bureaucrats or the private sector employees or the technocrats. They actually delivered whatever you see in Punjab at the moment. So for me, it's more about a governance issue than a political issue. Yes, there has to be a political leadership. Yes, there has to be a very efficient finance minister. Yes, there has to be a very efficient energy minister and the foreign minister. But the point here is the more the people on ground who are actually working towards it, who are delivering, who are folding up their sleeves and getting into the ground realities. So I'm not concerned at the moment about the team of the ministers here. I'm more concerned about the people who are going to take the things away in a more pragmatic fashion. It's not only about the finances. For me, the more of the concerns are about the energy sector, because this is the only sector which has taken all the steam out of the economic engine that we have had in the last 10, 15 years. So perhaps the biggest challenge is the energy sector, because this is where the most leakages are coming from, apart from PIE and Pakistan Steel. And the second part is this is where the shoe is really pinching, because people are suffering because of the very high prices of energy, gas prices and electricity prices. These two prices do not let people breathe. Every month, these two bills are coming up, and every month the people will be worried, and every month they will be talking about the price hiking, and they will be thinking that how much relief this government is going to give it. So for me, the most challenging part is the energy side, and then the second, if they want to grow all out of this, and I must quote here in the last program, and Farrukh Pitafi sahab very rightly pointed out that everybody is talking about the spending of the money, but nobody is talking about how to earn that money. This earning of that money is really important. This earning of money is where to come from. Perhaps not from the industrial sector, perhaps not from the long-term sector, but perhaps it is going to come from the immediate sector, from the IT, because this is the biggest resource that we have got, and the second is the agriculture sector. So the problem area, energy. And the two problem areas where we need to have more money is the IT sector and the agriculture sector. So if we keep on talking about it, but I just want to ponder on these two things. I'm not concerned about the team of the federal minister. I'm more concerned about the team of the bureaucrats and the technocrats that are going to pull along.
Right, Raja Faisal, one thing that's established here, the team doesn't matter, it's how you take forward with your framework, with your strategies, with your initiatives that matters. And known Shahbaz Sharif as an avid administrator, that's what people call him. How important how crucial are those governance challenges going to be for him, and how important is it going to be for Shahbaz Sharif to take the team forward, take all the coalition partners in what the PMLN strategies are for reviving economy, to address all the challenges that the country faces?
Yeah, Rafae, it's a very good question, and of course, when we talk about the current government, I mean, first of all, many congratulations to Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif. He's obviously second-time Prime Minister now, and he has been CM of Punjab before, and he has delivered in Punjab. Punjab being the largest province in terms of population, and it's almost half of the population of Pakistan, I always say. And now this is the biggest, of course, test for him. But this time around, of course, is a very tricky situation for him, in which, of course, it's a coalition government once more that he has become Prime Minister of. And secondly, of course, there is a sort of political rift as well. And opposition is a very strong opposition he is facing, and he has a role of balancing all of the things, of course, with the allied parties as well. I'm talking about MQM, I'm talking about CAF League, I'm talking about People's Party. People's Party already announced that they would not be willing to be part of the cabinet, so they won't be going for that. They were only looking for the constitutional positions which they have bidded for, and of course they are going ahead with that. And when it comes to cabinet, of course it would be purely PMLN's cabinet plus MQM. We might be seeing once more that they will be coming ahead for that. And then CAF League, of course, they will be going for it as well. But it would be a very tricky situation in which, of course, things needs to be balanced by Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif. How he does it in coming future, that would be interesting to see. But when it comes to, obviously the immediate problem which is being faced by Pakistan, and that is, of course, the economy. Pakistan's turbulent economy requires sustainability, continuity to the policies which were being, of course, applied by Dr. Shamshad, I must say. And we have been hailing her services in previous programs as well, me and Farrukh as well. I mean, this is something we always agreed upon. Normally, there are certain things we don't agree, but this was something we always agreed on, that Dr. Shamshad, it was the way she dealt with the turmoil and the way she applied the policies in recent times, and she had the skills to negotiate with the IMF, and she brilliantly served Pakistan. And I think her policies should be continuing, owing to the fact that in coming days, of course, there are more meetings coming with IMF, and during them meetings, of course, we need her policies and her services once more. So what I'm predicting, I mean, and it is sort of my wish as well, she has been, serving Pakistan excellently in recent times. She must be sort of becoming the part of the upcoming cabinet and continuing her services for Pakistan for at least few months. When it is sure that Pakistan is back on track, then of course she can make her other decisions. But for now, she should be, I mean, even if she is coming as an advisor to the Prime Minister on economic affairs, that would be perfect for coming months. And to me, I think that's how we can move forward. There are policies that she had, initiated, and they need continuity. SIFC can be pivotal in coming months. And of course, as Dr. Zubair has rightly pointed out, there are few sectors that of course needs to be boosted up. When it comes to, of course, rather than spending, we need to be looking after how to earn the money. And earning money, I mean, we know that currently we are just earning around $2.6 billion a year in the IT exports. That, of course, if we talk about, the IT experts, they always claim that Pakistan is the kind of country that has a potential to earn more than $50 billion a year in the IT sector alone. Right. So that needs to be, of course, figured out where the money would be actually, coming from. And of course, FDI needs to be, shifted towards the IT sector so that we can, bring in investments in the IT sector and earn more money, and we can enhance our capacity to earn billions in that sector, number one. And number two, of course, Pakistan is a country that is known for its agriculture. Agriculture sector, of course, with the inclusion of tech, agri-tech, I think we can enhance our crops as well. And when we enhance our crops, of course, there are certain countries that would be, in terms of importing crops from Pakistan, that would be quite good go ahead for Pakistan as well. So these are the sectors which Pakistan, of course, needs to put efforts on. And these are sectors that can, of course, eventually give Pakistan fruits. And in coming days, of course, SIFC can play a pivotal role in this context, because they have already been, excellently working, and I think that work needs to continue in the agriculture sector, in the IT sector, and more ease for the investors should be created so that more money is invested in Pakistan, and we can actually get on track.
Of course, Raja Faisal, these are some of the issues that Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif also addressed in his maiden speech. And before that, I'd like to say, as much as I enjoy the dissenting arguments between you and Farrukh Pitafi, it's good to hear that Dr. Shamshad is one point that you can both agree on. Moving towards Farrukh Pitafi, I'd like to ask him, what's your take on the challenges, the economic challenges, considering that Pakistan imports a lot of its hydrocarbons, and we need and we need natural resources on our own, our domestic resources, to try to control the burden we're having on our imports. And considering, Dr. Shamshad Akhtar's performance as the caretaker finance minister, we see the stock market rising up. Do you think there should be a continuity of policies, and there should be some elements, as we've not seen this in the past before? Do you think it's time to break those traditions and continue with the policies that were good for the country's economy?
Right, Rafae, thank you very much for the question. You're absolutely right about one thing. I am going to present a counterpoint to whatever Murtaza Faisal was saying earlier.
Right. It's inevitable.
Yeah, it is inevitable. But first of all, I think at this moment we all need to be congratulated on this humongous transition. Remember that usually a caretaker setup or transition is only a 3-month job, but this time it actually was somewhere around 2 years, right?
Yeah.
If you remember, when into 2022, PTI government was actually removed from power. After that, we had 2 questions. One, the parliament's longevity. There was still a question that the country might immediately move towards elections. But that did not happen. Then PTI actually quit the parliament, and it was kind of a half-empty parliament, right? With that kind of a situation and difficulty and the humongous not caretaker, but humongous cabinet at that time, the country had huge crises. After that, then this caretaker setup didn't seem to end anytime soon. There were still voices in the parliament, particularly in the Senate, who were asking for indefinite postponement of the elections. But luckily, finally, today, caretakers have finished their job and they have gone back home. Yes. And there is an elected prime minister. There is a fully, staffed parliament as well. So we can hope that in coming days there is going to be some predictability about policy and some kind of stability. There is another aspect also. When Shahbaz Sharif's government last time actually took over, at that time the parliament had actually finished most of its time. There was only 1 year, around 1 year, right, that they had to actually stay in power.
Yes.
And no matter how much you extend the tenure, in the end it has to finish one day, because then you have to have another mandate, right? Now with this parliament you have a new mandate and it can continue potentially for 5 years. So with that kind of a situation, I think that we need to celebrate, and I am very happy. Today I actually had told Faisal earlier, a few days ago, that I am going to distribute sweets, and that is what I did. Now, regarding the situation right now, I think that before caretakers set up, it was Shahbaz Sharif, when he was Prime Minister, who actually was really putting in a lot of hard labor. And I don't say it lightly. When he was Prime Minister, if you remember that because of Dar Saab's disagreements with IMF, it seemed that the program is going to end without actually being concluded. But then Shahbaz Sharif Saab actually went out of the way and made the SBA possible. So with that kind of a situation, in coming days, what we are going to see, Rafae, is that if that effort is put in again, we are going to see a lot of good that can come out. Regarding Shamshad Akhtar Sahiba, before she was made the finance minister, I was her card-carrying, fan, and I repeatedly kept on mentioning her. But I hear that while she might stay for a bit, if she is asked, she is not that interested in staying permanently, because she has her own professional pursuits. I don't know whether it is true or not. This is what we keep on hearing. So there might be another finance minister that might have to come in. Now, I don't have any problem with Ishaq Dar Saab, but like, for example, Mian Nawaz Sharif is huge. His party, he is the main element that brings the entire party together.
Yes.
But there's a reason why he is not Prime Minister, because the atmospherics are such, the mandate is so split that it becomes difficult to carry all the burdens, right? The man who had actually carried the burden last time can do it now,
Yes.
and that's why Shahbaz Sharif is the Prime Minister. Similarly, Ishaq Dar Saab has, and we keep on hearing that he is arguing that Pakistan should not go back to IMF. So that becomes a problem if we are going to have a finance minister who's actually saying this is his calling card. Then that becomes a problem. In coming days, I'm grateful that Dr. Ghauri Saab actually remembered my words, but then there is a problem. When you talk about income, where does the income come from? It essentially comes from economic activity.
Yes.
Because there's huge inflation, what happens is that you have actually kept the policy rate at 22%, which is a record high, right? With that kind of a situation, Rafae, if you have money, and if I'm giving you some kind of great opportunities to invest, but your return is 7-8%, and Faisal says, okay, just give me the money and forget about it. I'm going to return it in 1 year, and you're going to get 22%. Are you? You are not mad that you're going to give money to me, right?
You
Similarly,
can trust me.
sorry.
I trust you, but
no, trust is something else.
Yeah.
I'm talking about economic activity. Economic activity has not taken off.
Right.
Without bringing the policy rate down, and that means inflation down, you cannot have the economic activity on which you can tax and get more revenue or inflows.
That's
so
true.
we have to actually first see what becomes of that.
We'd like to ask Dr. Niaz Murtaza for his views. First, considering that Pakistan is an agriculture-based economy, but we're talking about IT being a source of quick revenue generation. Do we think that if the government comes and if they try to initiate these changes, this is going to be a major reform? And of course, those in the agribusiness wouldn't be so happy with the policies. But at the same time, we see those in the IT sector would see as a major boost to the IT sector. Do you think it's going to be easy for the government to be taking such revolutionary changes? And what other measures do you think that the government can take to promote economic activity, such as foreign direct investment, as the SIFC had been initiated in the recent past?
And Dr. Saab, could you also comment on recent reforms that were introduced by Umar Saif, the outgoing IT minister?
Well, certainly, IT can be one sector, but let's also remember that, IT is a sector which doesn't employ too many people. So you also need to look at the fact that we need to create a lot of, jobs in the manufacturing sector. So certainly keep IT as one avenue, but then we also have to look at, the industrial sector and, how we are going to, generate a lot of jobs in that. And for that, you need creative people, who have an idea about the global economy and where Pakistan could fit in, so that, first of all, it attracts foreign direct investment, and then it also becomes a hub for exports, so that, the current account deficit that we have reduces. So it's not going to be enough for, Mr. Shahbaz Sharif to have, just some able bureaucrats the way he had in Punjab. In Punjab, all he did was to implement some infrastructure projects, and that he could do by directly working with the bureaucrats. But that is not going to be his job in the center. He needs to, come up with new policies, and for that he needs able ministers. If he tries to apply the same model, then, he's going to fail miserably. And, you could see, that in the last 16 months, he was kind of struggling because, he was thinking about, where do I go to, implement projects? But then that wasn't his job. So you have to have a strong team of, at least 6 to 8 ministers related to all the economic functions, the power functions, and then you have to have a strong team for social development, because that's what you have to achieve. First of all, stability, which the finance minister with a strong macroeconomic ability will do, and then you need to increase productivity. Then you also need to ensure equity and sustainability. So you need a team of strong ministers of at least 12 to 15 ministers for all the main economic and social development functions. Then the second point that I would say is, about SIFC, I don't think we should be investing in creating parallel structures. We should be empowering the cabinet and all the, committees that you have under that, rather than, this completely different structure, which itself doesn't have, too much expertise. If you look at, who's sitting there, you really need people, not so much with security experience in the economic field, but people with, industry experience, export experience, global economy experience. That's what's going to help Pakistan take off. Finally, with regard to, the idea of Shamshad, well, I think she would at least be better than, Mr. Dar, who just did not know how to, get along with IMF, and he doesn't have a background in macroeconomics. Basically, he's an accountant. But let's also remember that last time when she was the governor, we had 25% inflation in her last year. The rupee was kept fixed for 2 or 3 years under her watch, and we ran the highest current account deficit under her. Now that may not be her fault because of all the political pressures she may have been facing at that time. But what that does show is that having a capable finance minister is not enough, and there's no doubt that she's capable. But then, the political side of the government also has to back her up so that, she can take all the right policy decisions that are needed, which would include, taxing the sectors that PMLN doesn't want to tax, like real estate, agriculture, your retail sector. So it's going to require a lot of tough decisions, and we need to see whether, PMLN is ready for that.
About Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, you were especially you have picked up the time when she was governor State Bank. But the State Bank governor is essentially a kind of custodian of monetary policy. But the deficit that you were pointing out were fiscal policy issues.
No. The governor controls monetary policy and exchange rate policy. And those are the two things that determine your inflation as well as your current account deficit, because exchange rate and monetary policy determine this thing. So you can't say that she was completely to be absolved, but yeah, you can say that she was facing a lot of political pressures, because of which she could not take the sound monetary and exchange rate decisions that she should have. She kept the rupee fixed for 2 or 3 years, 60 rupees under Musharraf, just like PMLN did at 100. That's what had happened, and that's why we ran the biggest current account deficit in our history in that year.
Right, Dr. Zubair, Ghauri, what are your views, considering that Dr. Niaz Murtaza mentioned productivity and equality? Prime Minister in his maiden speech also talked about gender equality, but he also talked about a lot of revolutionary reforms, such as in the judicial reforms, if we talk about the tax reforms, and a lot of other things as well. Considering the SIFC point, I think, in my personal opinion, it shows a good face to, it proves as a good platform to show that the whole country is united to increase foreign direct investment in the country. What do you say about the challenges that the new government is going to face, and the measures that they would need to take, considering all these revolutionary reforms as it is a coalition government at the moment?
And Dr. Saab, could you also actually reflect on recent proposals, because we were talking about bureaucrats. Recently there was proposal to separate customs from FBR, inland revenue and etc. Do you think, Dr. Saab, that that will increase the problems or it will solve it?
Okay. Trust me, I'm not a huge fan of making policies after policies after policies. Just few months back, I was in Japan, and they were saying that Pakistan is one of the highly regulated countries in the world in terms of the regulatory bodies and the policy structures that are there. Trust me, there is no dearth of numerous policies that have been made in energy sector, in finance sector, in textile sector, in privatization sector. The true challenge or the true problem, since I've worked with the public sector for such a long time and still working with them, is the implementers. Now, I tell you this briefly, this example, since the Foreign Minister Shamshad Akhtar Sahiba's case has come up, she has brought about another policy to reform the FBR. What happened to that policy? Because the implementers were not having the capacity or the intention or the will to implement that. So when I say that we do not need any more policies, then I say that we have a numerous number of policies that are there. We have the policy of the privatization, but why we are not able to sell Pakistan International Airlines or Pakistan Steel Mills? These are the biggest leakers. We have the policy of the energy distributions and how this should be done, and it's not a secret here. But where is the problem? The problem is with the discos administrators and the political governance. So when I say that we do not need more policymakers, I say that we need more implementers. You make on new policies, we don't need any policies. So I slightly humbly, very humbly disagree with Dr. Niaz. I have great regard for him. He's a senior to me. Coming back to what Raja Saab has said, I'm not a great fan of the individuals. Shamshad Akhtar Sahaba has done a wonderfully good job, but if we have to go away with the technocrats once again, then there's no fun in spending 20 billion rupees on Pakistani's elections. Let the elected persons come in and trust them. And why do we keep repeating about the initial degree that Ishaq Dar Saab got in the accounting? Why do we forget the 2 tenures that he had, and he had a wonderful time on all the indicators of inflation, of the Pakistan dollar against rupee parity? Only problem that he had was the current account deficit. Nobody quotes that. He was the finance minister, and he ran that, the biggest government. He had inflation under 5%. That was a huge, huge development. When we are talking about 26 to 30% inflation, it was previously 40%. The last point that I want to say here is, again, coming back to Pitafi Saab, we do not have a lot of room in maneuvering of getting the money and taxing the people. We do not need any magical wand onto that. The IMF is right on our shoulders, right on our neck, and they will not let you move a limb about it. So we have to work more towards getting more money. So the cheapest or the easiest way to get the money in the next 1, 2, or 3 years is through IT sector. We have exported $2.3 billion. So do you know the numbers of Indians have? They have around $193 billion in the year 2023. So there is a huge scope. Yes, industrialization can be a good thing. But if you do not have the money, how can we have the industrialization? First, get the money in home through IT sector, through agriculture sector that can plug the gap of the grains import into the country. And then with that money, we can have the knowledge-based economy and knowledge-based industry. Gone are the days of yarn, gone are the days of the basic textiles. The value additions are there. The value additions are there that the Bengalis are copying, the Vietnamese are copying, even the Far Eastern countries, they are getting into it. So my point here is that slowly and gradually is a long way. Take a big decision in IT sector, give skill to our youth, and then get their services. And many of these youth can be exported. Forget about the brain drain. We have enough brains we have in the country. If we are able to export 1 billion individuals out of the country in the next 10 years, that will be a huge service in terms of getting the money in. This is the biggest crisis that we are facing at the moment, is the money getting in, not of a long-term planning or the policy structures. Let's move on with the implementation. Policies are there. We don't need any new policies.
Right, very, very rightly put, Dr. Zubair Ghauri and Dr. Niaz Murtaza, senior analyst. Thank you both for your time. Of course, as you mentioned, we need the IT sector to flourish, and we need the country to move forward. We need the political leadership to move forward, and there should be a continuation of policies, whatever suits the government and the national interests more. Those should be followed, and it should be a matter of national consensus that whatever suits the national interests, whatever sector can best contribute to revenue generation should be prioritized. Now we'll move on to our second segment, where there's a recent incident that has been witnessed in India. There was a Spanish vlogger who was traveling in India as a part of their South Asian tour. They were on a motorbike journey in India now, as they previously completed in Sri Lanka their tour, and now they were in India, and we saw that there was a very devastating incident that the whole world witnessed. There was a lot of backlash from on the internet as well, and the people were criticizing the state of security and law and order in India. but the woman was subjected to gang rape, and it was a sexual violence that we witnessed in India. Raja Faisal, I'd like to ask you, do you think the role of Hindutva policies in India, the radicalism, the extremism that is being promoted, and of course the polarization that is going on there, does that contribute to the sexual violence? As this is not the first incident we've seen. Just last year, we saw a Korean vlogger also in India. She was live streaming. She was being harassed. So these are recurring incidents. What's your take on that?
Yeah, Rafae, obviously, if we talk about a country where every 18 minutes there is a case of rape, there are almost 90 cases every day get reported, obviously get reported related to rape cases. And it's a country where I was just going through 31,516 rape cases were obviously logged in 2022, and these are the cases obviously that people are, or females are actually coming to the police stations to register the cases. There are thousands of numerous cases in which of course people don't come because it's considered as a taboo to go to the police station and report these kind of incidents that take place in today's Hindustan. And to me, obviously now, as they don't want to call it India, so I would call it Hindustan. Rather, I would say that today's Hindustan is fastly turning itself into Rapistan. It is more like a Rapistan we're talking about, because today's story is such a horrible story. And this morning when I was going through that story, I was shocked. And of course, year after year we come across stories coming out from today's Hindustan. Of course, what's the reason behind it? Behind it, it's a reason because it's today's Hindustan is a country where, of course, cases like Bilkis Bano, they are obviously not treated with fair justice. And Bilkis Bano, who was actually in the Gujarat riots, the way she was treated, the way she was raped after raped, and she was gang raped, brutally raped. And of course,
family was murdered.
And she was murdered. And
family was murdered.
Family was murdered, and of course, she was not given justice later on. And the people who were involved in it, they were let free. The only reason behind it was that they were part of RSS gang, and that RSS gang is obviously the support force behind today's government, and that is BJP. And under the BJP's flag, today's Modi's government is actually promoting these kind of bigotries. When it comes to all of these bigots of RSS, when they do these kind of things with the other religious factions, or with the other, like Muslims, like minorities, even the Dalit who consider themselves on their Aadhaar card, it's written Hindu. They class themselves as Hindu, but they are lower class Hindus, so they don't have any rights. So all of these bigots, they actually rape them. Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, all of them, they get raped. And here we are, the tourists, they are not sparing the tourists. This particular couple, Spanish couple, they actually came from Sri Lanka. It was all perfect for them in Sri Lanka. They have been obviously vlogging from there, and they were so happy. As soon as they enter in India, this is what has happened to them in Jharkhand. And of course, they were considering India to be an India that is, incredible India, as India portrays itself in the Western world.
India is not credible anyways.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Incredible India. This is how they portray themselves. Here, as soon as they, of course, come to today's Hindustan, they come to terms with it that it is not incredible India they have landed in. They have actually landed in RSS Hindustan, that should be considered as Rapistan.
For Pitafi, what's your views? Because we see in Kashmir, in Indian illegally occupied Kashmir, we see the Modi government furthering these fascist tactics to suppress the Kashmiris' freedom movement as well. Do you think these tactics are taking color to the whole nation?
Right. Thank you very much, Rafae. I'm going to actually, because this issue is rather complicated, right? Essentially, rape has something to do with not only lust, but also with some kind of assertion of power as well. And there I might actually agree with the whole argument, and I'm going to actually build a case there as well, But before that, one has to actually remember that no caste, no religion, no population, particularly no ethnic complexion, has monopoly on violence or crime. Right? Sexual violence is essentially violence. It is one of the worst kinds, and my heart goes out to this vlogger and her partner that they had to actually go through this humongous, horrendous episode. Let us hope that in coming days they see justice. But back in 2013, before BJP was actually in power, I remember there was a huge furor on social media regarding a story that was essentially not a story, it was a satire piece, and that was that in one part of India, Assam, I think, rape festival has started, and everyone who actually wants to rape, they can get away with whatever they want, and they will be given prizes. So Indian side actually reacted very angrily. After that, we also saw during Congress's time that there was a rape that happened in Delhi in a bus, public bus.
Yes,
right?
that was a very devastating incident.
That was also very devastating. But the point is that all of this essentially has to do with a lot of factors. But how it actually Hindutva's policies might be playing into it, there is a very clear case. If you are part of a community or any kind of group that thinks that if they want to do whatever they want without consequences, then that emboldens them. Right? And this is essentially what has been happening. If you are a supporter of RSS or for that matter Sangh Parivar or even MNS, the other hardline group, there too one actually sees that you can practically walk out of prison without any consequences, and there is a good chance that you will never be arrested. But I'm hoping that recently when there was violence in Manipur and elsewhere, we heard India's Prime Minister breaking his silence and actually giving a statement. I want to this time essentially when they have actually come up with their candidates for Lok Sabha, they have shunned the people who were more hate-filled, right? Who stayed in headlines for hate. So I'm hoping that there is this sentiment they want to actually improve things.
Right.
If they want to, I want to hear the Prime Minister actually condemning this first,
Right, well,
and then asking for some kind of consequences.
Right, Farrukh, no doubt this was a very devastating incident and it should be condemned as strongly as possible. Of course, sexual violence anywhere in the world should be condemned, and there is no reason for its justification. Today's show we talked about the political dynamics, we talked about Shahbaz Sharif taking the oath and becoming the Prime Minister of the country and his policies that he's going to take and the measures that he's going to address. And of course, we talked about this devastating incident in India as well. We had within our studios senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and geopolitical analyst Faisal. And of course, we bid farewell to today's show and we conclude today's show. We'll see what politics unfold tomorrow and we'll be with you at the same time discussing it. See you.